morning, everybody. I know it's very dramatic there. It's like hello. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Experience Matters. We are so excited you're here. And we've got a special guest with us today, which is even more exciting. But to kick us off, I'm Crystal Weiss. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Question Pro. And I am joined by Raj, who is our CX Pro, journey management mapping, trying to convince me that CX is cool. Teammate, and I'm based in Austin, Texas. Raj is in California. Diane is in Dallas. And so we're spread all over the board today. Let us know in the comments where you're from. We love chatting with our international partners and our US-based teams. So let us know where you are from. Raj, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Was my opening better this time? Like with the excitement that I showed? I know last time I wasn't as excited. So Diane, last time was the first show I did with Crystal, and I didn't bring enough excitement initially. So I'm trying to bring that this time. So
then let's take the video of the coffee and make you drink the coffee before we get started.
That's true. That's a good.
Yeah. I've got my coffee. Actually, I've got coffee and water. Okay. So I'm here. I'm here for the duration.
I've had my coffee already. I've got my water. I'm good to go. So I'm looking forward to this episode, and I'm glad to have Diane here. So Diane, I don't even know if you need an introduction. I think you're super well known. Probably everyone that's on this webinar knows who you are. You're like one of the legends in the CX space. I've been fortunate enough to know you for a while through CXPA. We worked together at Michigan State. It's been awesome having you here. Maybe you want to do a quick intro about yourself to those of you that maybe the one or two people that don't know who you are. Maybe give us a quick background, and then I'll explain why we brought you on.
Yeah, little known facts. Yeah, real quick. I'm just a little girl from Kansas, so I'm very humble. This whole thing about your legend is like great. Just hoping that I can provide information to people that's useful. I started my career as a clinical psychologist, so I've always been in human behavior. And when I got out of that, I went to work for a company as a division of Cisco Foods and ended up going down there for their enterprise transformation and ran customer engagement there. Went out on my own just by serendipity. I was doing a presentation. Somebody asked me to come and if they could talk to me about it. And I said, I got plenty of time. So they hired me as a consultant. So I started my private practice that way. Worked at AT&T Business Solutions for a few years, and then went when I left there, I was on the board of the CXPA, and they asked me to step in as CEO for a few years. Did that, and now I'm back out making waves in this space. Because what we're going to talk a little bit about today is what's changing and how we can change what we're doing to have a bigger impact on our organizations.
Awesome.
That's me. Oh, I live in Dallas. I'm married to met my husband in kindergarten. We have 4 kids and our first grandchild on the way.
Wow.
That's so cute. I love that. I just met up with a friend yesterday who we've been friends since we were 7. So we've been friends for 30 years. And amazing, I was like, this is wild that we're like that. I just love those kind of stories.
I didn't date him in kindergarten, but
yeah, that is crazy to know somebody that long from kindergarten.
It's a little crazy. We don't have any. We said at one point we don't have any stories to tell each other anymore, and we said I guess we're just gonna have to make some.
Yeah. I love that.
Our mantra.
I love that. So tell us, Raj, why you brought Diane in today.
Yeah, so so just stepping back for a second. If you guys haven't seen the first episode of the show, definitely go back. The replay's still out there, right, for people that want to watch the first episode. So Crystal and I had this idea that we should do a show together. Obviously, Crystal is new to the CX space. She does a tremendous job leading all marketing efforts for Question Pro, but she's been kind of more focused on the research side versus the CX side. And I've tried to bring her along, and I've tried to tell her, hey, customer experience is cool. We've got some great leaders. Yeah, there's a lot we could do together. And so we decided to do this show where we talk about a lot of great customer experience ideas. She learns from me. I've got a lot of expertise, right? I like to think I know what I'm talking about. I teach at Michigan State, right? So I was super excited about this first show. And then Crystal stumped me right away, right off the bat. She said, can you define customer experience, right? And actually, as much as I think I know about the space, I stumbled a bit on it. I don't know that I gave the greatest answer. We went on tangents about call center music, which was actually fun, but I didn't give the best answer. And then I realized probably we need to bring in some people that know more than I do, that can really help define what customer experience is. And I thought of Diane, because Diane, again, we talked about your background, but you've done a lot of great work recently in setting up some systems and helping to define it. I also want to bring Diane on. Oh, go ahead, Crystal. What?
Oh no, I was like, I would like to create a defense of myself after this. Because
Okay.
I think there is a little bit, Diane, to give you some context, like Raj is talking about, everybody in here, right, knows what customer experience is. Obviously you probably haven't signed up to watch us if you didn't understand it, but from a layman's perspective, if I was just to talk to my friends about, hey, Raj does customer experience at Question Pro, the things that come into their mind about customer experience are probably the opposite things that come into that Raj does.
Yep.
And so I'm just here to poke holes in Raj's excitement. Every time he gets so excited, it's like a balloon blows up and I just go,
Wait, I thought I had it nailed. Yeah. It is interesting. And I don't know that it's changed over time. It didn't used to be this way, but so anytime anybody asks me what I do for a living, I want to tell them I'm a plumber, which they go, I don't really, but I want to tell them that because they completely understand what that is, what you do, how you do it, how you work. Are you on your own? But they know you come in and fix stuff. When you say you're in experience management, which is really our discipline, customer experience is what our target is, because we have employee experience too, like things we're trying to improve. When I say that, I said, hold on, I'm gonna ask you to tell me a story before I explain to you what I do, because it's a little complex. It's not there. So tell me a story about a great or bad experience you've had. Well, invariably they tell me what happened. They tell me how they felt about it. I went to the store and they were just so rude to me, blah, blah, blah. And I was so ticked off, blah, blah. So then they tell me that. Then I typically ask them, so what's changed with your relationship with this brand based on this interaction? Oh, I'll never go back there. I'll never go back there. And I tell all my friends to stay away. As a matter of fact, I went on social media and wrote a bad review. And I said, well, there's somebody in an organization who is designing experiences that don't tick you off, that are listening to that social media and looking for where there's opportunity to improve what's happening to you, not you specifically, but in general, the organization, and who's taking a very proactive approach to be thinking about, anytime we build a product or service, what's it going to be like for the customer to interact with us through that channel, through that digital entity, through the call center, wherever it is. And I said, that's what we do for a living. And they usually say, I didn't know that was anybody's job. And I say, well, that's why when you call the care center and you've already entered your credit card number on the website, and the call center goes, can you give me your credit card number again? It's because they're not tying things together. That's what we do. We connect the dots between those, and we bring the customer into the thinking of the organization. So we're building things that are going to make those interactions with Starbucks, Disney, Apple, anybody who does it, they do it intentionally and on purpose. That's all we're trying to do. And then
Diane, I love that definition.
Here comes a bubble. Here comes a bubble pop.
But
About to pop your bubble.
Do you think that is the reality, though, of how CX programs are set up at places? To my point, you probably pick the call center music, but do most customer experience programs pick the call center music?
So here's what I would say. Our role is not to go and find those things and fix them ourselves. Our real role as experience management professionals is to get the organization to think about that, and it just becomes the way we work. So you think about Apple. Do you think they sit around talking about the results of the scores and all that? Yeah, probably they do. But everybody in that organization knows what they should be doing to create great experiences. Disney, same way. And everybody says, oh, we want to be like Apple and Disney. Well, you know what they do differently? Everybody in the organization owns it. And so our real job is to teach people how to think differently, build differently, orchestrate the things differently, think more holistically. If you're a product development, don't sit in your little bubble and design a product for somebody. Go out and figure out what they need. What they're going to do. So it's helping the organization to really build those competencies and capabilities that they need in order to move things forward and to create great experiences that we have every day. If you think about if I think about every day how many brands I interact with, from my coffee to my smoothie to whatever it is, hundreds sometimes. And every single one of those interactions is either like, I got what I needed to get done. And sometimes I think about it. Like, that was really, really amazing. That call went so well. Or when I called an unnamed healthcare provider, I had to call back 4 times just to get somebody to talk to, and then they couldn't help me.
Yeah. And I think to your Disney point, the marketing team that I filter for people who've worked at Disney when I hire specifically, because it is ingrained in the culture. And when I think about customer experience, and then I go to a bad conference, a bad concert, I'm like, where are the event planners and the customer experience team meeting? Or where are the UX team and the customer experience team meeting? Because assumingly, when they send me my survey about how was your experience, I'm like, you don't know because you didn't build it.
Well, so here's where you talked about how organizations get stuck, and Raj can probably weigh in on this. Many organizations that we talk to, they come in and they say, it's not working. We're not making an impact. We're not showing ROI. And so we kind of look at, what are you doing? They're drafting surveys. They're looking at all the data to come together, which is totally necessary and very, very important. But they're publishing these dashboards that say, here's where our net promoter, here's our effort score. But they're not helping the organization draw insights from that information and figure out what to go do and how do we do things differently, so we're not having to look at the numbers. We already know where the customer stands, right? So they kind of get stuck there, because that's the tactical stuff. Because when you think about this work, it's hard. You're trying to get people to change the way they work and the way they think. And so it takes guts and it takes determination to go in there and say, we need to do these things differently. Here's why. Getting your leaders on board to say, if we create great experiences, we can have the returns that Apple and Disney have. But if we're ticking customers off and they're leaving because they're having a bad experience, there goes your revenue and your costs go up. That's how we don't talk. Many practitioners don't talk that way. They don't talk.
It makes me think, Raj, we should do an episode about how experienced management professionals need to be like the lobbyist is a bad, maybe not the best phrase, but like, you're essentially lobbyists. Like, you're essentially like advocates for your constituents.
We're enablers. So advocating is different. We're enablers. We're bringing tools, resources, getting people together. Sometimes it's an organizational structure change. We have one organization that they actually started hiring people and telling them 80% of their job was in what they were hired for. 20% would be spent on cross-functional team projects. That's an organizational shift.
Yeah. How does someone, I'm thinking kind of about those, I would say you're a new professional in CX, maybe. You've come into this team. You might not have a lot of coaching when it comes to being an enabler with executives. Like, do you think sometimes teams get stuck because they don't know how to have those crucial conversations and move the needle forward? What you're saying sounds ideal, and I'm sitting here going like, how would I go up to our CEO and be like, hello, here are the things I would like to change so that you can better have a better experience? That's wild to me. Like,
it is, but I tell you, there's lots of techniques if you do this a long time. And one of the techniques that I used with the company one time, I kind of figured I was going to get fired after I did this, but it was a company that has an industry that's always had a lot of problems. And so I created some use cases I knew that, like, when people went into our retail store, they were having a lot of problems, so long wait times, blah, blah. People go onto our website, they couldn't find what they were looking for. It took them a long time to make changes, and then call into the care center. So I created these use cases, and I had these executives take the use cases, created dummy accounts. They went into the dummy accounts, and I said, you go in and try to do this, 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 and this, right? And then come back and tell us how that experience was. Oh my gosh. They came back saying, oh, I must have had a one-off experience. There's no way that's the way it really is at the stores or at the call center listening calls. And I said, oh, really? Okay, well, here's the results that we just got from a survey of 20,000 people telling us That's exactly what it's like. Okay, I got funding because they recognized that I said, would you go back if you had to do it again? No way. I don't even, and listening to these guys talk about their experiences in other channels. And I'm like, well, that's what's happening. You're talking about retention. People are walking out the door because they had experience just like what you had. Now, had it gone really well, I wouldn't have had a leg to stand on. But had it gone well, it would have been, that's because we're intentionally designing some of those things and we know they're okay. But that's not the case based on what the data tells us.
Mm-hmm. So as a young CX or a younger CX professional, would you say use cases and data when approaching those executives?
Storytelling.
Storytelling, for sure.
Storytelling is huge. Helping them to have those aha moments that really resonate. I mean, that sticks with people.
Right.
It really does. Sticks with people because they're like, oh yeah, I got to get on this. Because usually they sit in the ivory tower and they talk about revenue and cost. But when you say, you do know that everything we do is all about getting the customer to do something differently, like marketing, sales, we're no different. We're just orchestrating that. We're trying to get people to stay longer and do all that by changing the experience, not by selling a new product. If we sell a new product, great. But if they leave after 90 days, we don't even get our money back from the product because our profit margin doesn't hit for whatever. So you can hear in my language what I struggled with, and everybody who's new to this, take heart. I was a clinical psychologist. I don't like numbers. I don't like finance. I don't like accounting. I don't even like to balance my checking. However, if I was going to be able to go in and say, I need money to go do these things to help us do this, to drive these change to experience, to drive business value, I needed to learn how to do that. So I sat with my CFO that was there and I said, can you teach me how they build business cases here? In that process of that, he was able to start understanding that what we were doing was going to drive change in behavior and impact revenue and impact retention and drive our costs down by, taking things away from the call center and making them self-serve. So it served two purposes. I learned how to build a business case, and he talked to the rest of the executives about, hey, this is something because I can see where the business case is coming from.
That's awesome. I mean, and that's definitely what I've been beat bopping around in the CX space with Ken for a couple of years now. And it is still every once in a while, I just get spicy. I'm like, I don't know what y'all are doing. I'm over here event planning, trying to bleeding till my fingers die, trying to build cool experiences. And it's like, cool. And then they'll be like, okay, we'll send the survey. And I'm like, you're killing me.
Yeah. That's and again, it's very tactical what people are comfortable with, and they kind of get into it and they're into it a lot, but they're not making it consumable and providing the product team, for example, with what are the 5 things that are most important to customers that they need to be able to do on our next revision instead of what they think they need to go do.
Yeah. I mean, on that storytelling point, it's so important, right? Because I think the people that I've worked with that have been the most successful have a blend of the storytelling capability to just inspire and create empathy, but then also to your point that you have the ability to pull data in and speak to both sides of an organization, right? Because to drive decisions, you have to come with the data and the numbers, but then to inspire people to even listen to you, you have to have that storytelling capability, right? And that's what's important, but then people get lost in, I think because of surveys and metrics and all this other stuff, people think, okay, let me just go send out a bunch of surveys, get feedback and send it. And that's enough, but that's not enough. And I think to your question about what CX professionals have to do better about is to craft that narrative and story and then be that selling feature to convince people that, hey, we got to go do something. And it might be different than what we had planned, but we have to go take it this direction.
Yeah. I have a quote that you can quote that I made up, storytelling moves people to action because it's very human.
Yeah.
The numbers give us credibility.
Yeah, exactly.
So it is very factual that in fact has been the case when you're telling the story about somebody who, very emotional story about what they ran into and the impact it had on their lives. But then saying, and this is happening to 20% of our customers. And we find when that does happen, their defection numbers are 80%.
Yeah.
We should probably stop doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
So in 2 weeks, when I introduce Raj, I'm going to say, hi, this is Raj. He's a plumber. And
Yeah. Because people just don't understand. They immediately go to, oh, you work in a care center. So when I used to try to describe it, I'd say that, and they say, oh, you run the care center. I'm like,
yeah. But that is assuming that they also know what a care center is. Because if you go back to the, like, I don't know, somebody who works in tech in general, like let's say you work at, I don't know, MongoDB, right? You're looking at, oh, you're working customer experience. Okay, so you work with the CSM team maybe, or you work with, there's not, it also probably changes B2B, B2C, right? Your
UX, people think I'm in user experience. Oh, you're a designer, like a web designer. No. Fortunately for most experienced professionals, because we have our fingers in all parts of the organization, you learn a lot about the different parts of the organization. So you're able to kind of talk their language. But I found, like, one organization I worked with, I actually had UX reporting to me. And people were like, why is it reporting to you? Because the user experience at that point, this is several years ago, I'm older, UX was just becoming a real thing. Like, people were, really trying to understand the design and how that had an impact. And what they weren't doing is UX would get these requirements and they wouldn't even get like mock-ups or anything. They'd just be, here, go build this website. And it was horrible because all they were doing is following this, what needs to happen. So by reporting to me, they were able to go on research with us. They were able to come to our sessions where we were redesigning the experience, and they understood what the customer was looking for and what we were trying to do and the outcomes that they wanted. So by being involved in all of that, they were able to build something that would, one, be measurable too. Like, how are we going to measure that this is actually impactful? I don't know a lot of UX teams that get into the business case of designing a great site.
Should they not? Like, oh my gosh. Shout out to the Question Pro UX team, because they really get into our business cases and have designed, I will say this is because I know this, our surveys platform. Don't at me, Raj. I know I need to log in and trial CX. I just haven't. But they have built the surveys platform by sitting on calls with our customers, and the customers going, this is the use case of what I'm trying to survey, let's say in video games. And now we have things that they have built out not only for that, but also, to make our platform better for other users and for accessibility.
Yeah.
Like,
and that has to be for everybody. So one of the things that we found in one company, there's one company who didn't have any processes. So first of all, right, how are you going to progress great experience without processes? But one organization who really didn't have any way to measure the experience. They didn't really have any way at all to say what's happening out there. There was no feedback, nothing. So when you think about everybody needs to own it, this organization, even though they didn't have processes and anything else, their number one problem was the bill they were sending to customers. You know why? It's because it was incredibly difficult to read. You couldn't find what you were looking for. They had all these taxes built in. You couldn't figure it out. And what the impact of that was, people didn't pay their bill. Why do we have 60 days sales outstanding? That's cash sitting out there, because the bill, they can't read it, and they call in, they don't get a good answer. I don't know, I'll have to check with my accounting team. Like, when you start to crawl into the experience, you start to recognize even people in the billing and finance department need to think about the experience they're creating.
I was about to ask you, what was the weirdest department you've put your finger in, like in the pies? Sorry, Raj, I keep cutting you off.
No.
I wouldn't say the weirdest one. I would say legal. So at Cisco Foods, one of the biggest complaints our customers had, which was impacting our win-loss ratio. And by the way, these were like $30, $40 million clients. We're not talking about chump change. That the contracting phase was taking too long, because they'd review it, they'd go back and forth. This was in the day when you had to pass the documents back and forth a lot. I guess you still do. But it was so complex, and they didn't understand the language. So it was taking a long time. We didn't have enough attorneys on staff. The sales team really didn't understand the contract themselves. So they had to go back and forth, and it was a mess. So that's I would say, the one that's usually buried, but had a huge impact on us even getting the contract signed, let alone the bad the bad blood that got developed by, if this is this what's going to be like to be your customer? If I can't even get the contract done with you, I don't know.
And that might have come out if they had those people in those departments experience what the customer went through, right? And it's amazing to me how many people in companies don't actually use their own company's product or experience it, right? And I know it's different in B2B versus B2C, but I feel like just experiencing what it's like for a customer, like that's a big thing that we can do as CX professionals, to just get people in our companies to know what that experience is like. Like I would ask you, Dan, how many, like, you've worked with a lot of companies, like what percent of maybe employees at companies do you think actually have hands-on experience using their company's product?
Well, it's kind of strange because like Texas Health and Human Services, no, you wouldn't do that. We had a propane delivery company where it's like, no, but on average for those where it was a consumer, where it was a consumer, I would say it's probably 30 or 40%.
Yeah, that's what I would thought too.
And they usually get a discount.
Yeah.
For doing it.
What? That should be like onboarding day one, right? Exactly. You work here, like whether it's a consumer product or a B2B product, like now that is wild. I had to build a survey on my first day at Question Pro. That was like that is your first task. Yeah, you have to immerse them in it because and you have to get them out of their trench. If you're working in product development, you need to go and look at the marketing materials, and you need to go talk to a salesperson, and it's up to you to figure out how you fit and what you do upstream and downstream. So are you developing a product, and are you letting the care team know you're making changes to the product, or this new product is launching, or whatever? You can't sit in your trench and just build and then just assume everything else is going to get taken care of. It has to be designed within an ecosystem. So you have to understand the ecosystem. So not just being a customer of the brand, but you got to go and figure out where you fit and how you fit as the puzzle pieces in the organization. Nothing stands alone. That's insane. 30% of people, like, that's wild.
That's crazy. I mean, it should be 100. Maybe that's not realistic, but it should be well over 50%, 75%. You should know what your company's product is and what the experience of your customers is. That's insane to me.
You might have like one product out of 30. Like if you work for an insurance company, you might have a life insurance policy, but you might not own your auto and everything else.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is too, you learn more. Like, I mean, even my own experiences, like I've told the story before at Airbnb where I collected feedback from guests and hosts for many years and analyzed it. But then I started hosting maybe 3 or 4 years into working there, and I learned things from having the experience myself and at that point I had probably seen thousands of customer comments, and knew I could tell you what our scores were. I could tell you what our pain points were from a customer's perspective, but I learned things experiencing it myself. And I think that applies anywhere.
Gosh. Yeah. I remember one company that we worked with, it's not quite as bad as, the plastic cases where they're sealed. That they're so sealed, and you have to find you can't rip them open. You have to find scissors. Like it's just frustrating.
That could be a segment by itself.
That could be an entire segment about a product industrial designers.
Yeah. Like they're not thinking about, can you go open this package, right? And what it's going to be like to do that. So it's down to that smallest, like we call it micro interactions. Sometimes you don't think about it. So comparatively to, I can't get the product open. If you look at Apple's, when you buy a new iPhone, have you ever noticed that when you open the box, it's a little vacuum, like you get
it makes that
sucky thing on it? Yeah. It's because that's the anticipation of knowing you're going to open it up. You're not ripping the box open. You got to pull it up a little bit. It's very slow. It makes that experience like this is something that's really cool, right? It's different.
Yeah.
That's on purpose. They designed that on purpose.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
But sometimes they don't. Like, a personal example for me is like for people with young children, like strollers right now. Like, and I had a young child 10 years ago. I've got another one now. for whatever reason, they think they've enhanced that technology to strap a kid into a stroller, but now it's impossible. There's multiple things you got to put together, and then when you've got a baby crying that you have to wrestle on the street to get in the stroller, it's been embarrassing to me. I've been on the street trying to, my daughter will want to walk, but then she decides she doesn't want to, so I have to put her in the stroller, and she's throwing a tantrum, flailing everywhere. And I'm trying to connect 3 different things, and I just want to be able to snap her in quickly. And I know maybe it's a safety thing, but that's an experience that's someone designing the stroller needs to say, hey, let's make it easy to strap a kid in and not have 3 or 4 different things, because it's a bad experience for me, right?
Testing.
Yeah.
And one organization, you'll laugh at this. This is the kind of things that you really have to pay attention in your organization. I asked them, okay, so we were doing an overhaul on an app for a maternity company. It's the app that you use when you're pregnant and after birth. And we ask, who does your testing? Who do you have that does the testing when you're trying to test new features? And they say, oh, we just have the whatever team test it out.
The QA testers do it.
Yeah.
Well, no, these are internal people who already know the product, and they absolutely know what's going to happen. It's almost like you're drinking your own Kool-Aid. You can't test it with people who already know what the platform is, because they're not going to know things. When we went out and did real testing with people, they were like, you know what, I can't save anything. So I like this article, but I can't save it. I probably won't use it again because I want to keep those things that are relative to me. So it would make me abandon the app. I'll go find
and
something.
Plot twist, I bet none of them were mothers.
Pregnant.
Or pregnant. Or, it just...
Men? Really? You're having men test this?
Okay, so here's my other question then, is we're talking about you make being someone who works in CX or engagement and experience management, journey management. I can see where Raj was like, ooh, we could talk about journey mapping here. You make it sound really idealistic, but then we talk about this okay, where are you doing the QA testing or the focus groups? We manage focus groups at Question Pro, and I have never heard of a CX team joining those focus groups or those qualitative research moments. I'm feeling a little still disconnected here, y'all. Are you guys doing different focus groups? Are there different meeting? I'm feel like there should be.
Let me go back to what I said at the very beginning. This is not something that you expect the CX team to pick up every broken thing, point them out, go fix it, be in every meeting to remind people, you gotta think about the experience. You have to enable people to do that themselves, because you can't be everywhere.
Right.
If everybody's piling projects on you, you're going to get too busy with the projects to enable the teams to go do it. So I'll give you an example. We had a real problem with products being developed at one company. They had 600 products. They had tons of new inventions coming out. That was their gig. Great. What would happen is they would build a product, they get to test, they get to launch, and the product would fail because they hadn't listened to the customer. We went back and asked the customers, it's well, the features didn't work or whatever. So in order for us to make sure that the customer was cared for and that people were doing what they needed to do to think about that customer, in their PMO office, you have to go through stage gates. So stage gate means you have an idea for a product, and then you have to go tell people what you're going to do. Then you build a prototype, and you have to come in and demonstrate what that is. So the PMO office is kind of the stage gate for that. You can't go past go and collect $200 unless you go through the stage gate of the PMO. When we looked at that, we said, well, we just need to embed some experience things into here. Where's your customer evidence? What evidence did you use that this is a problem for customers? Where's your business value? What's the effort? If you do this, let's say they're getting ready to do testing. Do you have a business case that's about what this is going to do for revenue, cost, both for us, but also for the customer? This is B2B company, right?
Yeah.
So what value you're creating for the customer. So by embedding these things in the way the organization worked, we weren't inventing new stuff. We were just sprinkling things in there that said, if you're going to progress, we want to know that you have thought through this, that you've done a journey map, that you have the outcomes and the business case around it, how you're going to test. Have you talked to other teams? Does every channel know what you're doing and what you're launching? Have you talked to marketing? Have you talked to the care center? Have you cared for all of that before they're able to move forward? So we're just operationalizing it. We're just putting it into the way the organization works. And so because we can't be there everywhere.
Yeah. Raj, how do you think that people can really then like enable CX within their, it just sounds like all CX experts have to be like your enablers, lobbyists, extroverts who are out there being like, hello. What are some like practical things that, people can really do to do that? Is it just trying to schedule meetings, send out updates? Like, how do you build how do you build interest in customer experience?
I think, no, it's a great question. I think you're onto something in terms of like, you got to be a salesperson, right? You got to be that internal salesperson within a company selling the vision, having the storytelling thing. But I think that a practical use case is like every company's got their corporate objectives for the year, right? So like, and they've got key initiatives. So when I've had the most success getting like CX changes done, is you align yourself with those key corporate initiatives and understand who your stakeholders are, and then go to people that own key initiatives. And again, this requires, probably some extroversion and some boldness and whatever. But go and say, hey, how can I help you, right? Because those initiatives, especially in large companies, are going to be important. They're going to have top-down buy-in. They're going to be resourced. But if you can connect what you want to do from a CX perspective to those initiatives, then all of a sudden you get some buy-in, and then if you get a couple quick wins, you get some momentum, and you can kind of build from there.
And you show value. You don't just tell the business case and then you disappear. You actually then track the benefits and say, we promised we were going to come back to you and say, here's what we got. And oh, by the way, we found these unintended benefits where employee engagement went up because we took care of the process behind it. It wasn't as traumatic as it used to be before. So now we're finding that the employees can get to the information and our calls are shorter. So you have to go back and tell that story. And I would expand on Raj's thing too. It's like, the executives. I go to every single person who owns a business unit and I say, what are you trying to do this year? What are you trying to do? Oh, we're trying to do X, Y, and Z. I wonder if we can help you out with this and this. We know that that's dependent on either employees or a process or our customers, obviously. But by understanding that every conversation we had, we would drop that in and say, we think if we do this, it's going to drive X, a new revenue, or it's going to reduce returns or defects by X percent, which means X in cost. So we started to use their targets to get their buy-in. So they're like, oh, I want some of that. I'll take some of that. Can we have one of your people to come and be part of the design team? And we'll come back with a business case for you. Not very many practitioners talk that way. I would say, Raj, maybe 15% of practitioners can tell a business case story.
You're probably right. Yeah. That's a place we need to improve as a profession for sure.
Diane's very you're not very optimistic about your own numbers.
I'm not, but I think so. Anybody who knows me knows I'm like, I'm not. I'm a little bold when it comes to it. It's like I can call BS on things. And I think it's because I learned early on. I worked for a logistics company. And if I couldn't tell the business case, I wasn't going to have a job. So, because I'm competing with the sales team wanting CRM. I'm competing with, we got to buy new trucks. Like I need money. So I have to be able to tell that business case. So
Diane's seen a lot. She knows what's wrong. And I think actually, if we have time, Crystal, maybe Diane, you can talk about what you're doing, because you're doing some great things now to probably get people in the space to have that discipline. Do you want to talk maybe about the operating system, maybe at a very high level? No, we don't have that much time. So.
Using, you are bringing in these advocates, and I'm assuming the operating system is part of that helps build those.
Exactly. So what we find is if you look at the competence even of an experience, it's usually like strategy, understanding, voice of customer, design, great stuff. But we're missing what the experience operating says is it's a framework and a system to operationalize experience. So if you're not talking about processes and you're not talking about data and technology as part of those experiences, I think you're kind of riding on the wave. You're not really digging into it. The whole point behind the operating system is that it's human driven to bring that customer and those stories into the organization, but embed these things, embed experience into the things you're already doing. So I gave the example of the stage gates, right? There's lots of ways to do that and make it just part of how you work. Because when you say CX, everybody goes, well, I'm already doing customer experience. I'm already providing experience. They don't know what it is, but they know it is. So we need to shift the mind. That's why you hear me refer to it as experience management, because that's really what we do. We manage the experiences. So the operating system is a way to embed it into the organization so that that's just how we work around here. And so we published a book called Experience Rules, and it introduces that system. And our point is, it's not about the book and it's not about the system itself. It's not for profit. We just recognize that we need the next generation of experience management. And that's where we think it needs to go, because as AI comes along and we're losing a lot of the human, as organizations try to move faster, if you don't have this systematically embedded, it's going to get lost.
I think, Diane, you just came up with your panel discussion title for X Day, the next generation of experience management. I literally was like, I got it. That's it. That's right there.
That's it, exactly.
We get Crystal a copy of your book. Crystal, you got to read it before X Day, though. You got to read Diane's book.
Yeah, it's very practical. What I tell people is that the chapters that talk about the competencies you need to have are almost like a recipe. Like, what is it? Why should you do it? Questions to ask, pitfalls to avoid, and what do you need to do next? Right. It's very, very practical stuff.
I say I'm in on Diane's version of experience management in CX. I'm in on it. I get it. I got it. Is Diane's version of customer experience and the reality of customer experience
we're trying to bridge that gap. That's what we're trying to do.
Are very if all teams were like hers, you would have better call center music.
Absolutely.
Who knew? Right? Who knew? Or I was just paying attention to your intro, right? What a catchy action, action. Usually it's a flat screen. There's nothing going on, but I'm watching the coffee pouring. I'm like, I want some coffee. It makes me feel like cozy, right? I'm like, this is pretty cool. The music was upbeat. Like, that's pretty cool. It's those micro interactions I keep talking about that are most important. Yeah.
And you know what? If you want to see more, we're going to have to wrap up here. So if you want to see more of these micro interactions, join us at Question Pro X Day. Diane will be there. She'll be leading a panel that we literally just came up with the name of on this show, on this live show. Raj will be there. We're going to have an espresso martini cart in the afternoon. Just like imagine like a rave and the boringest conference you've ever gone to, and then combine them together. And that's my goal in life, is to build like a conference experience that is nothing you've ever seen before. So y'all should come, because we're going to have more spicy conversations. And then if you think it's bad, you can tell me on the survey I send you.
Well, thank you so much for allowing me to share and help in your journey as an experienced professional.
We'll see you. We'll actually see you in 2 weeks, right? You're going to be at Forrester at Nashville.
Yeah, I'll be in Nashville.
Are we doing a special show?
We are doing a special show. I've gotten like a whole like remote kit that we're gonna film it like live.
Actually live in person. We'll be together in person filming live.
That's great. Yeah, that's awesome. And I want to just shout out to the people who are listening or who are watching us on demand. If you got any questions, Raj, I could see any of us can help. If there's something that comes up and you wake up in the middle of the night going, wait a second, I had a question about that, don't hesitate to call us.
Of course. And for those who registered, the first 5 registrations, we're giving away 5 copies of Diane's book. I actually need to probably order a bunch of them. That's probably what I need to do, actually.
I'll send them to you so you have them right away.
Yeah, they're going to be signed.
They'll be signed. Yeah, I'll sign them.
Signed copy. Even better, signed copies of Diane's book.
Yeah. We love that. 5 copies of Diane's book. Join us at Question Pro X Day. Join us at Forrester in 2 weeks in Nashville. We're going to be out and about everywhere, creating great experiences. And hopefully, I'm in for Diane's version, Raj, but I'm not convinced that's the industry standard.
second episode in. Now you're starting to believe. Now we gotta make some progress, right? So this is
Uh-huh.
a win for me. I'll take this as a win. Thank you, Diane, for helping.
My pleasure.
I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Okay.
My
See you
pleasure.
guys later.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Bye.